Welcome to The Explainer. So today we are going to completely biohack your study routine, and we're doing it using pure, cutting-edge neuroscience. Look, if you've ever felt like your late-night study sessions just kind of aren't paying off the way you want them to, well, you're in exactly the right place.
Have you ever pulled an all-nighter to cram for a big test? I think we can all safely raise our hands here, right? It's practically a culturally accepted rite of passage in the academic world. We all share this common pain point, fueled by caffeine and sheer willpower, just totally convinced we're maximizing our study time. But what if I told you that this culturally accepted practice might actually be a massive biological mistake?
Okay, let's dive into this. According to sleep scientist Dr. Matthew Walker, along with researchers at Harvard and UC Berkeley, straight through the night and cramming before an exam actually decreases your brain's ability to absorb new information by almost 40%. 40%! Just think about that for a second. You're putting in literally all that extra time, but your actual learning capacity just falls off a cliff.
Here's our roadmap for today. 1. The all-nighter illusion. 2. Preparing the brain to learn. 3. The night shift, consolidation. 4. The penalty of sleep deprivation. And 5. Actionable sleep strategies.
Starting off with Section 1, the all-nighter illusion, unmasking the cramming myth. Check out this absolutely crucial quote from Dr. Walker featured in the Harvard Gazette. He says, "You cannot commit new experiences to memory if you haven't had a good night's sleep." I absolutely love this because it establishes something so fundamental. Sleep is not a luxury. It's not just something you do when you're finally done with everything else. It is a strict biological prerequisite for making new memories stick. Without it, the system literally will not record.
Moving right along to Section 2, preparing the brain to learn, the life cycle of a memory.
So, let's look under the hood of your own brain. Healthline breaks down the whole process of learning into 3 distinct stages. Step 1 is acquisition. This is when you first encounter new info. Like reading a textbook or listening to a lecture. Step 2 is consolidation, which is where processes in your brain actually stabilize that learned information. And Step 3 is recall, which is accessing it later on the actual exam. Now, what's really interesting here is that acquisition and recall happen while you're wide awake, but that crucial middle step, consolidation, the actual saving of the file, that happens almost entirely during sleep.
To really understand the hardware involved here, we have to look at the hippocampus. This is the brain region that's most responsible for creating new memories. Researchers at Harvard Medical School describe it brilliantly. They say it acts exactly like a computer's short-term RAM or cache memory. It holds on to the new data you're taking in, but just like a computer's RAM, its capacity is strictly limited. It's the major bottleneck for learning.
And to illustrate this capacity issue, Dr. Walker uses a fantastic metaphor. A rested brain is essentially like a dry sponge, just totally ready to soak up new information. Or you can think of your hippocampus as an email inbox. When you sleep, you clear the inbox, moving the files into long-term storage folders. But if you're sleep-deprived, that inbox is completely full. Any new information you try to learn is just going to bounce back like an undeliverable email. You simply cannot absorb it.
All right, Section 3, the night shift, consolidation. What happens while you sleep? Let's look at what your brain is actively doing while you probably think it's just passively resting. This brings us to some absolutely fascinating academic science. According to a PhD thesis by Anna A. Valley-Gutteson at the University of York, sleep drives an active systems consolidation model. What does that mean? Well, during sleep, those newly formed, super fragile memories sitting in your hippocampus are actively reactivated. They're essentially played back and transformed into stable, long-term representations within the neocortex. So sleep actively shifts the dependency of the memory away from that fragile short-term storage and locks it into the stable, long-term hard drive of your brain.
Let's see how this actually builds in practice. A Harvard Medical School study tracked motor skill improvement, specifically rapidly tapping a sequence of keys on a computer. The group that was tested with waking intervals improved by a measly 3.9%. But the groups that actually slept between training and testing, they improved by roughly 19 to 20%. They even found that a specific stage 2 non-REM sleep, was driving this whole thing. Resting your hands while awake did absolutely nothing. Sleep was the absolute only thing related to a significant increase in performance. It's a real game changer.
Which leads us to Section 4, the penalty of sleep deprivation, how cramming breaks the brain.
Now this is a bit of a scientific detective story, because we're exploring the hidden culprit behind those terrifying exam day memory blanks. Researchers at Harvard used fMRI scans to look at sleep-deprived brains, and what they found is honestly alarming.
Dr. Walker noted that sleep deprivation impairs brain function almost as if a temporary lesion had formed on the hippocampus. Think about that, a temporary brain damage-like state. It creates a severe physical-like block. The crazy thing is, the students' concentration systems were actually fine. They were trying to pay attention, but their actual memory recording systems were totally shut down.
If we look even deeper at the neurocognitive level, we find something called beta desynchrony. As noted in Guttison's thesis, this is a neural signature, specifically brainwaves between 12 and 20 Hz, that indicate successful semantic processing and memory formation. Basically, when you learn something successfully, beta power decreases, meaning deep processing is actually happening. But here's the kicker: sleep deprivation completely disrupts this beta desynchrony. An extended lack of sleep destroys the very brainwaves required to form and process new memories. No way around it.
And the penalty for this is incredibly long-lasting. Another shocking finding from the Harvard Gazette notes what we can literally call the 35-hour penalty. Students who were kept awake for 35 hours before viewing images performed 19% worse at remembering those images 2 days later. And here is the truly scary part. That was after catching up on their sleep. Let me repeat that. If you cram and miss sleep before learning, you permanently impair the encoding of that memory. Recovery sleep later on just won't fix it.
Okay, moving to our final part, Section 5, Actionable Sleep Strategies, Biohacking Your Study Routine.
We've seen the science, so let's give you a clear, science-backed solution to replace the dreaded all-nighter once and for all. The absolute crucial point is this: sleep is a two-way street for memory. First, sleep before learning acts like that dry sponge, clearing the inbox. Second, sleep after learning is just as vital to cement the info. According to Harvard researchers, the first 30 hours after learning are critical. If you're sleep-deprived in that specific window, a full night's sleep later won't save you. You must sleep on those facts before the exam. Aim for 7 to 8 hours. The NIH notes that 4 hours or less simply won't strengthen memories. And while a 90-minute daytime nap can improve learning, be very careful not to nap so late that it completely ruins your nighttime sleep.
Which brings us to our final thought. Knowing all of this, knowing that sleep literally rewires your brain, clears your mental inbox, and creates the exact brain waves needed for memory, will you trade your next all-nighter for a full night's sleep? I mean, you now have the neurobiological cheat code for your next exam. The absolute smartest thing you can do for your grades tonight is just go to sleep. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and happy studying.